nationwide.
Good evening. In Nationwide tonight, does Lord Macarthur's judgment offer a way out of the rail dispute, or does it just take everyone back to square one? We'll be talking to NUR leader Sid Wheel about whether he thinks the dispute is now over, and to ASLEF leader Ray Buckton about the productivity agreement he is now prepared to make.
Well, we'll be visiting one of the most picturesque sites in Britain, where the cobbled roads are literally cracking up, and we'll be looking at how pop shows have changed in the 25 years since the influence of 6.5 Special first burst upon British screens.
Well, a few moments ago, the British Railways Board broke up after a 4-hour meeting considering Lord Macarthur's report into the railways dispute. As yet, there's been no announcement of what they've decided.
We will, of course, going to pay a visit, in fact, to what is undoubtedly one of the most beautiful towns in Britain. Over the years, it's attracted hundreds of thousands of tourists from all over the world, as well, naturally, as armies of photographers and filmmakers. Like most things in life, it's a place which is not immune to the problems of age. Now, Nigel Farrell of BBC South Today now reports.
This is Gold Hill in Shaftesbury, an ancient Dorset hilltop town, and it was this bread advertisement, filmed nearly 10 years ago, that made it one of the nation's most familiar streets. It was as near perfect an image of wholesome rural English country life at the beginning of the century that any advertising agency could dream of. Today, a decade later, Gold Hill looks as charming and as whimsical as ever. But unfortunately, that image no longer stands up to the cold scrutiny of the 1980s. Oh! Upon close inspection, it's revealed that the medieval cobbles, whilst perhaps looking the part, are not quite all they should be. Over the years, the cobbled surface of the famous hill has subsided because of poor drainage and the constant repair
Today, pop
and
music
maintenance
is
of
tuning
gas
up
in
for a
it.
special tribute. 25 years ago, the Radio Times invited us to climb aboard the 6.5 Special. Remember that? The very first ever pop television program. Now, the program began a tradition that is still being carried on by Top of the Pops. Memory lane time, it all began like this.
Over the points, 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 over the points. The 6.5 Special steaming down the line. 6.5 Special right on time. Gold in the boiler, burning up bright. Rolling and a rocking through the night. And my heart's a beating, 'cause I'll be meeting the 6.5 Special at the station tonight. Hear the whistle blowing.
It's time to jive on the old 6.5.
Everybody do the rock. Everybody do the roll. Everybody do the rock and roll with the merry old Cold old Pete.
Not a dry eye in the house, especially for Pete Murray. You do wear terribly well, I give you that.
Well, I wear, there's no doubt about that.
Now, you know, that is historic stuff, isn't it? A bit rough at the edges, but it must have been tremendous fun and an unmissable programme for many people.
Well, they tell me it was unmissable. I didn't miss very many. I tell you what I did miss, because it was a live program, was the fact that, rather like this studio, you have various points of program. We have the artists spread all around, and I can remember once doing a program, and I looked at Johnny Dankworth, and I said, I have first numbers from Johnny Dankworth. He said no. I went to Humphrey Lyttelton, no. I went to, I think it was Tommy Steele. He said no, and I eventually finished up with a lady named Marion Ryan. But that's the sort of thing that used to happen on a live program, you know.
Yes. My memory, I must say, and everybody has a memory of 6.5 Special, was of Adam Faye singing, what do you want if you don't want money? They tell me he didn't always actually sing the words, is that right?
Well, I don't remember that. I do know that Tommy Steele never actually played the guitar. But I'm sorry about that, Tommy. He's a very good squash player, and I hope you forgive me. But he didn't. That's a secret, I think, that's come out since those days.
And it wasn't just pop, as I recall. Somebody was reminding me today, which I'd forgotten, that Freddie Mills was on at the box office.
Well, we had a sporting section at one time, which sort of faded into the, just faded into oblivion, and then Freddie just became an integral part of the program because we used to do sketches. It was written mainly by Trevor Peacock and latterly by Jeremy Lloyd, both of whom done extremely well. Of course, Trevor's now in Hobson's Choice at the Haymarket Theatre.
Yeah. Now, we're going to update it in a moment and see how all that is done now. But what do you think of the kind of developments since then? The arrival of videotape, of electronics and all that kind
Oh, well, technically, I think that there's no question. I mean, it's obviously much better. If you're doing a live program anyway, even if it's done on video, it's still a bit of a problem. I think that you'd agree on that. But I think somehow a little bit is lost by the fact that they don't do programs live anymore.
Yeah.
I think that there was a lot more.
Right, well, you were referring to Brian Grant there, on my left. We'll
Yes.
come to him in a minute. Because
Right.
we're now going to bring you right up to date, because as you know, nowadays it's all very, very different from that. Instead of being live, as Pete said, warts and all, the visual presentation of pop music today, the sort of thing you see, for example, on Top of the Pops, is a highly sophisticated and technical operation. It's beautifully packaged, and this, of course, is what it looks like today.
Down below, the cars in the city go rushing by. I sit here alone and I wonder why. Friday night and everyone's cool. I can feel the heat, but it's soothing heading down. I search for the beat in this steady town. Downtown the young ones are going. Downtown the young.
Well, Brian Grant, you make videos like that. It's a highly sophisticated job, isn't it? What about the time and the planning and the people and the money that goes into that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's so much different now. I mean, I have to say first off that 6.5 Special was just a little bit before my time. I think they made it in a Zeppelin factory, didn't they? But
I mean, you mustn't be scathing. They'll go right off you if you're scathing. A lot of people watching will remember it with great affection.
No, it's wonderful. Again, no, it's terrific. The difference, obviously, is, as Pete said, it was technically that's the thing that's changed more than anything else. I mean, we spend so much time. The chip gets into everything. You know, we spend so much time just doing one number, whereas they spent maybe a week doing a whole show.
How much does that cost, one of those tapes?
An average cost of a video these days is at least £10,000, at least.
Now, you had the Mickey well and truly taken out of you on Not the 9 O'Clock Usual.
Brilliant.
A wicked
Oh,
take-off.
wonderful.
Nice video, they called it, Shame About the Song, which was suggesting that, you know, your technical wizardry can cover up some pretty mediocre rubbish.
Yeah, I mean, it can. If I get it right, it can, which I hope I do a lot. A lot of the times you get songs that are not particularly good songs and you have to do something to enhance them, you know, which can be done. But you have a number of things to do. You have to enhance the artist's career and what they do outside of the video. It's used to promote them in clubs and in shops.
But isn't that mutton dressed as lamb?
Sometimes. I'm not going to tell you who I think it is, but sometimes it is. But not always. I mean, there are the things we do today are, I think, better in lots of ways than even 6.5 Special.
But Peter, he's saying basically that he's there to produce and promote a product. Did you feel you were doing that? You were there to entertain us, weren't you?
Yes, I think so. I understand entirely what Brian is doing, and in fact, I think he does a marvellous job in promoting the sort of work that he does, because it must be absolutely horrific, some of the stuff that you have to do that you loathe, actually. But generally speaking, no, it was a variety program, because don't forget, we didn't only have rock and roll, which was the current craze, but we have big band jazz, and small band jazz, and traditional jazz, sketches with Spike Milligan and Peter Sellers.
And yet, predominantly, it's still remembered for the pop, isn't it?
Yes, oh yes, it was 100% pop.
Well, Brian, I mean, there's 25 years since he does wear terribly well. Doesn't he?
I
I look like that.
Flatterer.
I
Yes,
don't
but-
look like that now.
What's going to happen in the next 25 years? I mean, where do you go from here after all these very glossy professional productions now you
Well, you see, the whole point is that these things are made for far more than just TV use. They're made with the advent of the video cassette machine, video disc, and cable and satellite in America. They're made not only to promote singles, but they're made to sell on the street, and that's a whole different thing. You know, we're now making videos of albums that you can actually go out in the street and buy. The difference, I think, between 6.5 Special and the videos we make these days is that they have to be very repeatable.
Fine. Well, it's Golden Oldie time. We do love it, and everybody does. So we haven't quite finished yet. We're going to go back to 1957 and the 6.5 Special on this 25th anniversary on the birth of pop on television. It seems right that Peter Murray and Joe Douglas should have the final word.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Deep River Boys. That was the most, I think we can safely say.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah, wonderful.
Hope they'll be coming back again soon. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of yet another 6-5 special. We hope there's been something in it for everybody. And we hope very much that you'll join us again next week.
When we have with us Johnny Dankworth, Lita Rosa, Cleo Lane, Danny Purchase, let's have a butcher's roast. We've got Betty Smith and her group. Well, she's great, you know.
She certainly
New girl.
is. The Vipers.
And
Look-
Heather Sears.
And Heather Sears, it looks like being a great
Yeah.
show. So do join us. I can see Eric with his drumsticks all poised.
Wonderful, there we are. Well, that's just a flavour of it. And just to prove that this programme is absolutely live and unexpurgated, we're going back to David Dimbleby now for an update of news on the rail situation.
And there is some news. As you heard earlier on, Lord Macarthy's Committee of Inquiry into the rail dispute said that British Rail should pay their train drivers the 3%. The train drivers had to negotiate flexible shifts. In the last few minutes, the British Rail Board have said that they will accept the McCarthy Inquiry recommendations if ACAS receives assurances from ASLEF on that commitment to flexible rostering couched in acceptable terms. Now, on Nationwide, as you heard, the train drivers' leader, Ray Buckton, said the union wouldn't be a party to the elimination of the guaranteed 8-hour day. And Mr. Buckton has just said that, in his view, there seems to be no change in British Rail's position. Other industrial news, well, the leaders of the Civil Service Union have described a pay offer from the government as ludicrous and offensive, and they're demanding arbitration on the issue. Under the offer, the lowest paid civil servants would have their wages frozen. And teachers' unions in England and Wales have turned down a pay offer of 3.4%, calling that insulting. Well, that's all from us here on Nationwide on this night when McCarthy issued his report. We'll be hearing a great deal about that, no doubt, between now and tomorrow, when we'll be back again at 6:25. I'll be here with Sue Lawley. So until then, good night.